Welcome back to day 7, section 7 of how to buy your first property in Cleveland, Ohio in 2026, 2027. So today we're talking about more specific and granular risks in Cleveland. It's the boring stuff, but frankly, it's important. And I frankly find it very interesting. Having lived through it, I'd prefer to talk about it than live it, right? So let's not live it. And so let me tell you one of the most important things that once I've evaluated a property, thought I want it, that I look at when we're kind of looking at, will we do this specific deal? So the first is lead-based paint. Okay, this has come up in previous videos, but let me be really clear. This is a problem that we deal with a lot, especially in Cleveland as a management company. And we've gotten to the point where we have a few rules to protect our clients and ourselves regarding lead-based paint. So the first thing is if you're buying a house in the city of Cleveland and it is not registered as having been cleared for lead-based paint, don't buy it unless you're really clear about what it's going to take to get it cleared. So in your mind, like, you got to do this step, this step, this is how much this costs, and this, I'm willing to pay that as part of the cost of this house. Okay. Cleveland has, I think they technically can fine you for like up to like $1,000 a day for not being in compliance of lead. It's no joke. There are potential criminal violations, and also they require a local representative to sign their name for full criminal and full civil liability, including that $1,000 per day fine for being out of violation, almost any violation. So for a property manager, like if you're a property manager, we got to sign for that. And we charge a little extra, not much. As long as we're a property manager, we would never agree outside of being a property manager to be your local representative in Cleveland because it's just such high liability. But we charge a very small amount extra just for that because it is such high liability, even with some control as manager. So the other thing is that along that same line, if you have moving wooden windows, we will not take that property to manage, okay? Unless you're committed to getting that taken care of, like first step before we rent it, right? The reason is that most of those, like 90% of the wooden windows, have lead in them. And even if you can there's a way to trick a passing with the city of Cleveland to pass those lead windows. But if you look at like all lead injuries, 19 out of 20 of those lead injuries where someone's injured by lead poisoning happen from the windows. Okay, because there's a lot of ways that it can happen. Like the kids like to eat the little chips because apparently the lead actually gave it almost like a sweet flavor to them. So they would non-windowsills. That can all happen, right? Technically. However, when you put something in a window, it's hot and cold, it's wet and dry, it's expanding and contracting. It's in this track and just grinds up and down. Every time it moves, trillions, microscopic lead particles go into the air and then directly inhale. Just think of how fast nicotine hits someone when they smoke a cigarette. That's the speed of hard, heavy metal poisoning entering your tenant's lungs, okay? Listen, I've never been like a judgmental person, okay? But let's just face it. We don't want to be a part of that. Like you don't, but even far above that, like, let's just face it. What happens when someone's found, like, if you've ever looked at seeing what happens when someone is, like a child tests positive for lead in a house, what do? They immediately send somebody in from the county, okay? Then, if there's any lead found at all, they might have been poisoned from it. If there's any lead found at all, and they do like a real deep test, so it's much more detailed than the city clearing tests that they use. If there's any lead, they require full remediation. All residents have to get out. The cost of this remediation tends to be about 5 times the cost of that same contracting work outside of this requirement, right? So like basically all your windows have to be replaced. But now instead of being just a couple $100 to $500 a window, it's $1,500 to $2,500 a window, right? You're putting your tenant up in a hotel during this time. I've seen, and there's a huge shortage of actual licensed lead contractors to the point where like last time I saw this happen, it was like 6 months just to get this done, right? And it was relatively minor work, and the tenant had to move out. And thankfully, they were willing to move out rather than us having to pay daily hotel rates, right? And probably damages as well to that tenant, right? And thankfully, they didn't ask us, they didn't try to sue us or the owner. We were lucky, right? What's the cost for a lifetime of lead in a child? I don't know, but I think a jury could make the case for 6 to 7 figures. Okay. Do you want that? At least you can say it was cleared, even if they get poisoned, right? You get what I'm saying? Like the cost just escalates and escalates to almost unlimited. So you don't want to mess with the windows, is what I'm saying. It's a known factor that's like almost all of your risk. Like most of the people that get poisoned is inhaling lead dust. And even if you paint those windows, it grinds, and the first time you move it, it's already releasing that dust again. You can get the test to pass by painting, and then it's still immediately. And so you say, I cleared it, but then someone gets poisoned, they're going to go right back to failing you. And guess what? You in a civil court, they're still going to be like, yeah, we think you should have known, so it's still your house, so it's just better to just do the right thing. If it's wood windows that move, get rid of them. And that's our rule. Like, we just don't want to be involved. You shouldn't either. It's good for you, good for us, good for everybody. That liability is bad, 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 So I was talking about risks. Let me just say, like, the lead is huge right now. It has been. It's a big political thing, but it's also real. It's not just totally fake, Now, a lot of the ways they handle it is fake. It's really stupid, really bad. It's a total mess. Don't get me wrong. But guess what? Just make sure that there's no peeling paint, and that and that your house isn't dusty when you rent it out, and that you have new windows, and that you have, not wood windows, right? You do those 3 things inside and out, you don't really even think about lead much. That's 95% of it, right? So don't do it if you see a house without windows, especially in Cleveland, but anywhere really, because the civil liability is going to be anywhere. Cleveland is just a little bit different and more difficult how they enforce it. And frankly, they're probably doing everybody a favor by forcing it to be dealt with, right? But it'd be just nice if they got their act together how they did it and weren't entirely difficult and how they did it. So again, replace those windows. And no peeling paint. Figure that out. Work in the numbers. Do not get yourself a situation where you can't. And it's amazing how many people buy houses and they don't even figure for the fact that those windows are there. So that's the number one thing specifically that you need to think about for houses. Another similar thing is city inspections, especially like in the inner ring eastern suburbs. Maple Heights, Euclid, Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights. They have a lot of inspections, and most of them have point of sale inspections. So when you're buying a house, they're going to have an inspection. If you're even looking at a house on the multiple listing service, ask to see if they've done the inspection. That helps out a little bit up front because then you don't waste your time. But just know that when you're buying a house, and especially if they don't have a point of sale inspection, but they have yearly inspections. I think Euclid might be that. I forget which one. There's several cities where they don't have a point of sale, but they have a yearly inspection, right? So some of the things to watch out for these cities that have these inspections is arbitrarily, they can ask you to do some really large repairs. Sometimes you can work with them, sometimes not. But we've definitely seen our owners get into real financial binds because like a new driveway is really expensive. So we saw one where it's like there's cracks in the driveway. Like, come on, like it doesn't affect livability, a few cracks. It's just minor. Even if it's like almost turned into gravel from concrete. Gravel driveway, we have those all the time. Is it a big deal? Is it unsafe? No. But they don't want it, right? It doesn't make the house not falling in, it never needs replaced. Not according to the city. So things like driveways, sidewalk blocks, siding, garages. Make sure that those are pretty buttoned up, especially in these cities, any of the inner ring suburbs on the east side, like I said. They'll force you to fix it. A garage is $20,000, a driveway is $20,000, siding on these bigger colonials ends up being $20,000. On one of these giant duplexes, roof is an easy 15 to 20, look for those big items there, because you could have a house that's all nicely fixed up inside with the rented tenant, and these items are still there, and you're thinking it's great, the money's coming in, it's turnkey. Nah, those big exterior items can get you, and you could have multiple on one house. Easy fit, $30,000 to $40,000 unexpected, right? And that blows any 20% that I talked about out of the water. So rule those things out first. Let's make it the difficult, unlikely ones, and hope you never have to use that money, right? The other thing along the same lines, is that one of the things that we miss both in inspections and one of the things that are missed oftentimes in home inspections because they're just not inspected and that you just don't see in a lot of situations is roots, like mainline drains. So like your sanitary sewer backs up in a lot of these houses, especially if you have big trees. And just even without the trees, older houses, you're talking 100-year-old houses, they have like old clay pipes going outside, and a little shift, a little here, cracks that clay pipe and can make it collapse in on itself. And so it's not a bad idea to get, as part of your inspection, if you are inspecting, a camera. And just factor in, like, especially if there's big trees in front of the house where the main line probably is, like, and maybe you're in a situation where it's a wholesaler you're not inspecting so much, factor in at least a component for the possibility, the fact that you could have some issues with that main line there, right? So when those happen, it's normally not under $15,000 to bring in heavy equipment to dig up and replace that whole line from street to house. Obviously, if it's as farther setback, it's a longer line. But that's one of those things that's unseen. It's pretty common here. I've seen a lot of investors with these expenses, and when it does finally collapse, normally suddenly you can't even really shop around too much because you're paying a guy. You end up sometimes getting a hotel room for something because poop is backing up into their basement or something like that, which is not very nice. So that's another one that's house specific in Cleveland that you should really think about. The other thing is that if a house is vacant, it's been vacant for a while, figure on burst pipes. Unless you can inspect them. But like you say, you can't turn the water on, no inspection, figure on burst pipes. I mean, you can see if there's water damage normally, you get some pictures of a house, even if you can't do a full inspection. But for a wholesaler house, and if it's gone through a winter, a lot of burst pipes out here. That's just a thing. Some people in warm areas of the country can't fathom that. They never even heard of that. But yeah, no, the winter expands pipes with water, and you get a lot of burst pipes. We've been pretty good about keeping that from happening in our vacant houses when we're managing them. There's a lot you have to do altogether to keep that from happening, but when it's coming from, just an average bank-owned, wholesale, the distressed property, look for that as well. They might have fixed the water, cleaned up the water, but if the water's not on, you could have a bunch of burst pipes and don't know about it if you're buying it without an inspection. So I hope that helps. You kind of think about some of the risks. Tomorrow, we're going to go into a little bit more about like choosing the right property specifically as like a property type. We've kind of dealt with some of the risks, but now we're going to kind of look at like what should you actually really look for. So I'll look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Thanks for sticking with us and with me. And as usual, feel free to schedule if you're thinking about property management, especially if you have a house already, or you want to talk with one of our representatives about a future house and develop that relationship now so you have your dream team. See you tomorrow.